Okay. Welcome back to Lenz's Comic Corner Classic New Classics. This is episode number 3472, Doubleshot number 3366. I got two DC trades. These two have one in particular. These two characters did do a mini crossover in the 1990s. And these two are quite interesting ones. First we have is Supergirl Volume 1 by Sophie Campbell, known as Misadventures in Midviale. Yes. Now, first talk about this costume on the cover. This is the first Supergirl costume to expose her belly. To basically be kind of like this since 2011. Yes, you heard me correctly. 2011. Interesting, we have a new Supergirl logo. This is technically the first Supergirl series since Supergirl, Girl of Tomorrow, that limited series done by Tom King, which has been loosely going to be adapted for the Supergirl movie, coming out, I believe, this year. Yes. So, this also was the first ongoing since the previous volume ended, I think it was back in 2019, I think it was. Yeah, the last volume lasted for a whopping 42 issues, which was longer than the previous volume by about 2 issues. Now, I had previously reviewed the previous volume. This is by far volume 8 for the series. You think, 8? Yes, 8. You see, the original volume was published in the 1970s. Volume 2 was released in the 1980s, very early 80s, done by the awesome Paul Kupperberg. Now, the first volume was 10 issues. Second volume was, I think it was like 23, I think it was. Third volume was early 1990s. That was 4 issues. Then introduced the Matrix Supergirl. And then eventually we had the awesomeness that was the Peter David run, which still to this day has not finished collecting yet. They collected maybe like half of the run. And it lasted roughly 80 issues. And then we didn't have a Supergirl book again until like 2005, which that was I actually liked that book. There was a lot of that book I really did enjoy. I enjoyed the Jeff Loeb issues that he did. I actually liked the Jane Palmer Amanda Conner issue, the one issue they did do. The Sonic issues are really good. It ended with, of all people, Killer Superhawk, and here was the weird thing about the final trades. They were releasing like about a year after the book ended. Yes. And then, of course, we had the New 52 relaunch book, which was interesting book of what it was. Lasted for 40 issues. And then the book ended. We didn't do anything with Supergirl. When that book ended, Supergirl didn't appear again for about 2 years. Yeah. Not until about early 2016 is when she finally made her return. And, of course, they brought her back because of the Supergirl TV show. And they gave her the costume. The comic itself was loosely adapting ideas from the live-action show. And then the book was apparently canceled with issue 20 because Bendis screwed over all the Superman books. And then the book got uncanceled, lasted for a couple more years, but first by Mark Andrago, and then by Jody Hauser, and then the book ended, and then we had the Wonder Girls run, and we had this book. Of course, just before this, we had basically a feature from Action Comics, which first had a one-shot, which led into a feature for Action Comics, which is a Supergirl backup feature, which she didn't wear this costume. She wore her Super Team costume. Yes, for some weird reason, they put her part of the Action Comics family group, where she wore a jacket, and I guess some people would, I guess other people was like, get rid of the jacket, put her back in her costume. And yeah, first costume. And of course, yes, Sophie Campbell does the writing here with. She also does the co-artwork as well with Rossi Kempe, Paulie Gazisho, and also does the cover artwork. So basically, we start off with Supergirl and Metropolis fighting a shark woman wearing an octopus dress, dropping sharks in Metropolis, and then dropping her in the ocean. And then, of course, thanks to Streaky the Cat, yes, and remember this character, Streaky the Cat, as in Supergirl's cat, which she didn't have that in the previous volumes. Nope. Oh, before I continue here with this book, there's a lot of Silver Age Easter eggs in here. Because apparently Sylvia Campbell really loves Supergate. Basically, you can kind of think of these issues as sort of a love letter to pre-crisis Supergirl. And I'll explain over the course of this. Well, we see her going to the Biosea Kandor. Oh, by the way, in Kandor itself, it's under Red Sun, so no power. Basically, no Kryptonians get powers, but Supergirl does. Saves a girl. And the whole thing about the Kandorian Science Council. Yes, run by Science Council. And then, of course, she goes to Midviale after saving a plane. Yes. Yeah, go back to Midviale. Which, here's a weird fun fact with Midviale. Did you know Supergirl has not been to Midviale since the 1970s? Yes, seriously. Because where's Supergirl been a lot of the time? Hanging out in Metropolis, Chicago, or National City, like she did in the previous one for the book. But that's where she hung out a lot of the time. Usually in Metropolis, not usually Midviale. Midviale was basically kind of like her own version of Smallville. She puts on a wig, puts on glasses, and looks around town. And something is weird. And we see, oh, home of Supergirl. And that's not Supergirl. I'll get to that. Yeah, and also for some weird reason, this Supergirl outfit is pretty much basically her very first costume from the Silver Age. It's like Supergirl stuff and basically runs her friend Calissa Goderich. I think this is the first post-credits appearance of her. Probably first Flash appearance of her. And there's mention of here of absolute power because it's part of the All Initiative. Look, and of course, think Supergirl's a imposter. Like, oh look, here's the real Supergirl. No, that's not Supergirl. That's an imposter. Yeah, and there's a screamer about that, and apparently she goes to visit her adopted family when she first arrived from Krypton, and they apparently got minds manipulated by this girl who claims Belinda Danvers, even though that's not her at all. Yeah, so these first two issues are all about mistaken identity, where this is actually a Kryptonian girl from Kandor who she's supposed to keep an eye on. Of course, you have Titano here. And it turns out this actually is Lisa Lar from Kandor. Yep. Though she has become basically her own costume. And then we see Lena Luthor, the daughter of Lex Luthor. Yeah. Now, this is a really cool idea. Thank you, Sophie Campbell, for doing this. Because if anybody's ever read the Supergirl Silver Age stories, Lena Luthor, well, more importantly, her aunt. This actually is Lex Luthor's daughter, mind you. Because, of course, the brainiac symbol in her head, that's not from pre-Flashpoint. So, in the Silver Age comics, Lena Luthor, the original one, not this one, the original one, she was a recurring character in the Supergirl comics, and Lex was trying his best to make sure his sister and like him, and Lena became good friends with Lex. No, like with Supergirl. This is a really cool nod to that, having Lena Luthor II basically do this. Yeah, Lex named his daughter after his sister, who was confined to a wheelchair in the 2000s for some weird reason, not sure why. And of course, basically, the fake Supergirl tries to... And of course, then we have her go through various different costumes. One is this weird outfit, which I don't think she wore before that I can think of. And then we go with the first Silver Age costume. Then we have full bodysuit. Then we have this weird one. And this one here, for those of you unfamiliar with Crisis of Earths, that is the costume Kira wore when she died in issue 8. And then, of course, we actually have her wear, believe it or not, the late 70s, early 80s costume. Yes. And she wears this for one issue. before she goes back to the outfit that she was wearing here. And of course, we have Stanley Alan Grimm doing a variant cover because this person, Stanley, loved to draw Supergirl. So we get this weird, look like mac and cheese sandwich. Okay. And fights Lena, and then we have Satan Girl. Satan Girl, I think this is actually a Peter David creation, because I don't think this is from the Silver Age. That's Peter David. Very interesting idea. And then, of course, they fight, and of course, Lena tries to calm down. And of course, then Supergirl has enough of her outfit that she's wearing, and then she's getting back to the little S thing, and she puts on basically the outfit she wore from the start. And it says, "I'm Supergirl," and she apologizes to her and kind of taking custody. And then we see Laura's parents. Not Kira's parents, Laura's parents. And of course, they keep an eye on her. Obviously, this is a recap. And then she changed her name to La Maria, which this is an original character. I see nothing wrong here, per se. And then we have Lena. Then we have Lena, Linda, and Laura just dress up as goth girls. One of them is already a goth girl. And they go to a club to possibly pick up some guys. And then we see a guy with tattoos. Yeah, it's quite interesting, of course, with the slime stuff. And we has a girl named Luna Lostrom, and of course, Lemuria. There's no what a lovely name. That she has psychic ability, and of course, the three just hang out, and then we have Crypto being shot by a rabbit. Yes, the pesky rabbit. And then they bring back Princess Shark from issue 1. Just as a joke. Yes, a joke. And gets easily beaten by the Super Pets. Yep. And I'm like, good dog. Yeah. And then we have Super Kittens. Okay. And they run about, and of course they beat a gorilla up, and Supergirl collapses, and we're in issue 6, the last one. Oh, before I continue here, before I read this trade, I actually read the first 4 issues already. Last 2 issues I did not read yet, but yeah. Then this issue becomes a Halloween issue. We have this look like a teenager, look like she's dressed up as Elvira. I'm like, that's interesting. And then, of course, we have Supergirl relive stuff from her past. First, of all things, the Red Lanterns. Yeah, this actually is a nod to 2 volumes ago, where she was, in fact, a Red Lantern. You're thinking, wait, Guy Gardner was a Red Lantern? Yes, he was. Thank you, Charles Shaw, for that. Let's see, Bleeze. And then we have basically Red Lantern Supergirl appear here because we have a nod to that volume. Then we have someone called Knife Flame. I don't remember this character. And then for some weird reason we had to basically make a reference to Argo City, her hometown. Yeah, in post-crisis, the red card was Kandor. Yeah, I'm not sure why. And that's the other thing we reference here from New 52. And then we have just Suitman, Dr. Light. Yeah. And then we have Supergirl looking like this. Now you're probably thinking, what the heck is up with this outfit? Well, there is a bit of an explanation for that. It's from the first post-crisis storyline featuring Supergirl, which was collecting the second trade for Superman Batman, which was all adapted, which is called Supergirl, which they also adapted into Superman Batman Apocalypse, which they knew sequels after that. And then we have a nod to New 52 with this. One of the cyborg Superman, Zor-El, Kira's father. And then they wrap that up, and then It's a guest coming dinner. This book was a lot of fun. I haven't really talked about this book yet, but this book is a lot of fun. It's I don't find the book offensive. No, I think a lot of people were really worried about Sophie Campbell because of how her run for Teenage World went. But this book was a lot of fun. I don't feel anything was wrong here. I thought it was funny with the whole Super Rabbit. I thought that was kind of funny. I thought it was interesting. We have nods to the New 52 run for Supergirl, like the Red Lanterns, and then we have from the previous volume for the book, we have a nod to her taking on the Cyborg Superman father, which that was a New 52 creation, which I thought that was really cool. Overall, fantastic book. I thought it was really cool that Stanley Algram Liu got a chance to do very covers because this guy loves drawing Supergirl. And like every time I see him pop up at Comic-Con, they have him there, and he always has that Supergirl cover he does. Glad the fact he does this. It is interesting though. We don't have. I think it would be really interesting if they have Jim Herman do an issue for this book, but who knows? All right, next up we have is Resurrection Man, Quantum Karma. Now, I have not met Silver Camp, but I have met Ram V. Cool guy. I actually met him just prior to his run for Detective Comics. I did mention this to him that prior to him doing Catwoman Just Like Dark, I never heard of him before, which that's definitely true because those two was first books he worked on. He also told me Father Valley is based on the priest from Hot Fuzz. So, Resurrection Man. Interesting DC brought this character back for a mini-series. Yes, it's under the Black Label imprint, but it feels like it's set in the main DC continuity. Now, this is actually the very first Resurrection Man book released since 2012. Yes, 2012. It was a very short-lived run, done by the original creative team who did the previous one for the book in the 1990s, and it had a crossover with Supergirl. They did the second one. First one was 27 issues. The last one was 12. This book here is only 6. So, we have Randy and the Ready, obviously, with Honor Ruck, Justin Bushgoose, Recipes Man. He just recently passed away. I think it was just not that long ago he passed away. And Mike Perkins. I have met Mike Perkins. Very cool guy. If I see him again, I'll probably have him sign this because Mike Perkins is a fantastic artist. So, Resurrection Man. It's still Mitch Shelley. Yes. It's weird though. After they wrapped up his previous volume, he stopped appearing in DC Comics. He did nothing for years, and then we have this book here. Also, I love the artwork here. It opens it up, and it's the artwork from the first volume. Yeah. Who is Resurrection Man? And it's like an old comic these people are reading about. Like, oh yeah, Mitch Shelley, this guy keeps dying and comes back. That's the whole gimmick of him. He just dies and comes back. And it's all about this other stuff here. We do see cameos from DC Universe here. I'll get to them. So a lot of it is basically like simple. Then we have Resurrection Man. We have basically the line from Jelly from I think this from the late 1990s, where from left to right we have Marsh Matter, Wonder Woman, Batman, Green Arrow, this is the Flash, Electric Superman, Kyle Rayner, and Black Canary. So for Green Arrow, this probably was prior to the man's death, and I'm thinking that based on his costumes here, I am thinking that this is probably from the late 90s-ish. So, and of course he keeps dying, coming back, obviously. I'm not going to show them the artwork here. So, we see him go with a lot of people. It's like, and then we see Ray Palmer, the Atom. I'm like, that's interesting. Yeah, a rare comic featuring Ray Palmer. And then we have Resurrection Man meet up with all people, the Phantom Stranger. Oh, and look at him. He does not have the silver around his neck. So, is this pre-Flashpoint Phantom Stranger? Yes. Because post-Flashpoint Phantom Stranger, in this continuity, we're going to be Judas Iscariot, the man who betrayed Jesus Christ. Yeah, it was weird. And since he have a silver on his neck, this is obviously pre-Flashpoint him. Still dying, coming back here with his wife, obviously. So we've had Ray Palmer, we've had Fan the Stranger. Is there going to be others? Oh yes, there will be others. Some more dying coming back here. Scary, just here. Stick it about to go. So, we got gorgeous artwork here. Ray Palmer's here again, but now we see his face, and he's got a beard. Okay. We see sort of absolutely Samaritan with him, and then we see. I think this is supposed to be. I can't really tell which Green Lantern is supposed to be. This is a weird looking Green Lantern. I can't tell by the artwork, but it looks like a Green Lantern. Who it could be? I don't know. And then Ranvi brings in the Human Target, which he has not been seen since his previous book by Tom King. And then we see more nods to the 90s book where he gets shot by women known as the Body Doubles. He, of course, comes back once again. Well, so far it's been Fan the Stranger, pre-Flashpoint Fan the Stranger, Ray Palmer the Atom, and now Human Target. Like, is anybody else? Well, about to find out and see. Oh, look, here's Fan the Stranger once again close to him. Yeah, still pre-Flashpoint Fan the Stranger. And here's a little close-up of his neck here. Like, do you see the silver on his neck? No, because this is not the New 52 version. Of course, you go out to space, obviously, with Fan the Stranger. More kooky stuff here. Looks like it could be a cosmic cube. And then he just comes back. And then we see Fan the Stranger do something. And that's it. Very interesting book, per se. So, Booch Gooch apparently was the co-creator of Resurrection, apparently. So, book was fun. I like all the cameos we had here from the regular DC universe. But who would I think was most surprising here? So, I would say all of them. But I would say probably the most surprising is probably Human Target. I did not expect Human Target to interact with Resurrection Man. I thought that was interesting. Ray Palmer, I think he may have interacted once before. Fan Strange was also interesting too, but I've heard him as pre-Flashpoint Fan Strange because no silver on his neck. That's how I know that's not him. So could this be? I would say this is more like. It didn't feel like it fit in the New 52 continuity. This more felt like it fit in the pre-Flashpoint continuity. That's presumably anyways my part. Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much a particular video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to notifications. Next up, one more Comic Corner. Again, next video. Bye.